Have you ever felt like your entire life is an audition? Like every room you walk into is a stage? You smile, you perform, you measure your worth by how loudly others clap, and when they don't, you feel invisible. That's not living. That's performing. And most people never realize they've spent their entire life trapped in that performance, trapped in the approval loop. You wake up, already thinking about who you need to impress today. Your boss. Your friends. The glowing rectangles of social media. You chase likes, praise, validation, all these digital crumbs that promise worth but never truly feed your soul. And yet, even when people do approve of you, it's never enough. The applause fades. The silence returns. And so the cycle begins again. It's exhausting. Not physically, but spiritually. Because every time you shape yourself to fit someone else's approval, you lose a little more of who you really are. You start editing your life, trimming away your edges, dimming your light, trying to fit into an idea that isn't even yours. But here's the dangerous part: this isn't just emotional exhaustion. It's a philosophical trap. A trap that decides how far you'll ever go in life. Because the moment your worth depends on external approval, you stop growing. You live to prove, not to improve. You fear mistakes because they might make you look less. You stop trying new things because failure feels like a verdict instead of a lesson. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice starts whispering, "What if I'm not enough?" That voice, that small, insidious doubt, is the symptom of something bigger, a fixed mindset. A mindset that believes your abilities are carved in stone. That you either have it or you don't. That talent is fixed, intelligence is fixed, and your destiny is already written. So you perform, and perform, and perform, trying to prove that you're worthy of belonging. But here's the truth most people never hear. There's a way out. There's a shift so simple yet so powerful, it can completely rewrite your reality. It's not about working harder, or getting richer, or chasing more applause. It's about turning inward. It's about changing the lens through which you see yourself. Because the real freedom, the kind that fuels unstoppable success, begins the moment you stop living to impress, and start living to evolve. That shift, from seeking approval to seeking growth, is what separates the exhausted performer from the unstoppable creator. And in the next chapter, we'll uncover exactly where that transformation begins. With the hidden force silently shaping your identity, the fixed mindset. There's a belief that quietly lives inside millions of people. A belief so invisible, yet so powerful, that it shapes every decision, every risk, every dream they'll ever chase. It's called the fixed mindset. This mindset whispers, "You are what you are, and that's all you'll ever be." If you're smart, you'll always be smart. If you fail, it means you were never good enough to begin with. It sounds harmless, almost logical, but it's a trap disguised as comfort. Because when you start believing that your abilities are fixed, your entire life turns into a never-ending test. Every conversation becomes a performance. Every project becomes proof of your worth. You don't take on challenges, you avoid them, terrified they'll expose effort. Because in the fixed mindset, effort is shameful. Effort means you weren't naturally talented. And if you weren't born with it, maybe you don't deserve success at all. So you start living carefully. You stay where you're already good. You polish your strengths instead of building new ones. You hide your weaknesses instead of improving them. You fear failure so deeply that even the idea of trying something new feels dangerous, because what if it reveals you're not as capable as they think? This mindset feeds off approval, it needs it to survive. Every compliment feels like oxygen, every criticism like suffocation. You check others' opinions before your own intuition. You become addicted to being seen as capable, confident, successful. But inside, you're terrified that one wrong move will expose you as an imposter. That's why perfectionists procrastinate, not because they're lazy, but because they're afraid to fail. That's why dreamers give up halfway, not because they lack passion, but because they believe struggle means they're not naturally gifted. And so, the fixed mindset locks you inside a cage, not of walls, but of fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of effort. Fear of not being enough. But here's the truth. The greatest people in history, the innovators, the thinkers, the creators, weren't born great. They became great because they refused to stay in that cage. And in the next chapter, we'll step into their world, the opposite universe of the fixed mindset, where failure isn't something to fear, it's the most powerful tool for growth. Welcome to the growth mindset. Now imagine waking up one morning and realizing, life was never meant to be a test. There's no judge. No scoreboard. No invisible panel of people deciding your worth. It's just you evolving. This is the world of the growth mindset, a world where your abilities aren't fixed in stone, but shaped like clay, molded by your effort, persistence, and courage to keep going. It's the belief that talent isn't a gift, it's a muscle. And the more you use it, the stronger it grows. In this mindset, you stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start asking, "How can I get better?" That single question changes everything. Suddenly, every challenge becomes a doorway. Every failure, a map. Every mistake, a teacher dressed in disguise. Because when you truly adopt a growth mindset, failure loses its sting. It stops being a verdict and becomes information. You no longer crumble under criticism, you listen to it like a scientist analyzing data. You don't fear the fall, you study it. You get curious. What can this teach me? Becomes your secret weapon. And something magical happens. You start creating from joy, not from fear. You're no longer trying to impress anyone, you're simply obsessed with the process of becoming better than yesterday. You begin to realize that the greatest reward isn't applause, it's progress. Think of every innovator in history: Edison, Da Vinci, Marie Curie, Elon Musk. None of them were chasing approval. They were chasing understanding. They failed more times than anyone else, but every failure became data, every setback a strategy. They weren't seeking validation, they were seeking mastery. And mastery doesn't come from perfection, it comes from persistence. When you live through the growth mindset, effort becomes sacred. It's not something to hide, it's something to celebrate. Because effort means you're alive in the process. It means your mind is building new pathways, your soul is stretching into possibility. You don't seek shortcuts, you seek lessons. You don't fear feedback, you crave it. Because you understand that every honest critique, every stumble, every imperfect attempt is a step closer to the version of you that once felt impossible. In this world, success isn't a destination. It's a state of becoming. And when you reach that realization, something inside you finally relaxes. You no longer need permission to grow. You no longer need approval to feel worthy. You already are, because you're in motion, you're learning, you're becoming. So when you stop seeking approval and start seeking growth, life itself transforms. You don't chase validation anymore, because you're too busy evolving. And that, right there, is the mindset of every truly successful person who ever lived. In the next chapter, we'll uncover how this single shift, this choice to grow, becomes the make or break difference between those who stop at potential and those who fulfill it. The response to failure. There's a single moment that defines every person's destiny, a moment that separates those who rise from those who stay stuck. It doesn't happen when you win. It happens the moment you fail. Failure, that word that makes your chest tighten. It's the wall everyone hits, the silence after the applause, the point where your plans crumble and your confidence shakes. And in that instant, the voice that speaks inside your mind determines everything that comes next. For the person trapped in a fixed mindset, failure is personal. It's not I failed at something. It's I am a failure. Their entire identity is attached to the outcome. When they stumble, it's not a lesson, it's a label. You can see it in their eyes, the sudden doubt, the shrinking posture, the way they quietly retreat to protect whatever is left of their pride. They tell themselves, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. They quit early not because they can't continue, but because continuing would mean facing effort. And in the world of the fixed mindset, effort feels like proof of weakness. But the person with a growth mindset experiences that same moment completely differently. They fail, yes. They feel the sting, of course. But then something remarkable happens. Their inner voice doesn't say, I'm not good enough. It says, okay. That didn't work. What can I try next? They shift instantly from judgment to curiosity. To them, failure isn't a verdict, it's data. It's the universe giving them feedback. The growth mindset person dissects the loss like a scientist studying an experiment. They replay the scene, not with shame, but with interest. What went wrong? Was my timing off? My approach? My preparation? Every mistake becomes a roadmap. And every setback, a signal pointing toward a better strategy. This difference, this single response, is what makes or breaks your success. Because while the fixed mindset person quits to protect their ego, the growth mindset person keeps moving, building, adjusting, improving. One sees failure as an ending, the other sees it as the beginning of mastery. Think about it. Every great innovator, artist, or athlete you admire, they've all been sculpted by failure. Michael Jordan missed over 9,000 shots. Edison tried over 1,000 experiments before creating the light bulb. Each time they fell short, they didn't say, I'm not good enough. They said, not yet. That's the growth mindset in motion, turning every defeat into a training ground for excellence. The fixed mindset avoids the pain of failure by quitting early. The growth mindset embraces it, knowing that pain is the signal of progress. Because behind every discomfort lies the stretch of growth, the rewiring of neurons, the strengthening of will, the quiet evolution of mastery. So, the next time you fail, and you will listen carefully to the voice that speaks in that silence. If it says, you're not enough, that's the ghost of the fixed mindset trying to keep you safe. If it says, what can I learn from this? Congratulations. You've already crossed the threshold. That question, simple yet powerful, is the make or break difference between a life defined by approval and a life defined by growth. The relationship with effort. There's a quiet moment that separates dreamers from achievers. The moment when the excitement fades and all that's left is effort. Most people fear that moment. They see effort as something heavy, something to endure only when absolutely necessary. And in the fixed mindset, effort isn't noble, it's shameful. Because if you were truly talented, things should come easily, right? That's the lie so many of us grew up believing, that genius means effortless perfection. But look closely at the greatest people in history, and you'll see the opposite. What looks like natural talent is often the polished shine of years of invisible work. Every smooth stroke of a master painter hides thousands of failed canvases. Every overnight success hides a decade of unseen persistence. The fixed mindset doesn't see this. It worships ease. It believes that struggling is proof of inadequacy, and so it quits when things get hard, not because the goal isn't worth it, but because the effort feels like exposure. To them, effort whispers, you're not good enough. So they retreat, hide behind excuses, and call it not meant to be. But the growth mindset hears something entirely different. To them, effort is sacred, a language of progress written in sweat and time. Every repetition, every late night, every frustrating setback is a message that says, you're building something real. The growth mindset person knows that effort is not evidence of weakness, it's evidence of transformation. Because effort is what rewires the brain. It's what builds new neural connections, turning potential into power. It's what transforms uncertainty into skill, and curiosity into confidence. Think of it like fire. For the fixed mindset, effort feels like burning, painful and destructive. But for the growth mindset, that same fire is forging. It's the process that turns raw metal into a sword. They understand something most people never do. That discomfort is the doorway to mastery. The longer you stay in the tension, that space between where you are and where you want to be, the stronger you become. And when others stop, the growth mindset pushes one step further. Not because they're trying to prove something, but because they're addicted to the process itself. They fall in love with effort. They respect the grind. They know that every drop of effort is compounding, shaping, strengthening, even when no one's watching. Because here's the truth. Effort doesn't expose your lack of talent, it creates your talent. Effort is what makes you smart. Effort is what makes you skilled. Effort is what transforms potential into reality. So if you ever feel tired, if you feel like you're pushing but not moving, remember this. You are not stuck. You are sculpting. And every ounce of effort you give is chiseling away the old version of you, revealing the masterpiece that's been there all along. In the next part, we'll face the final test of the two mindsets. What happens when someone tells you the truth you don't want to hear? That's where the growth mindset truly proves its power. In the acceptance of critique. The acceptance of critique. There's a moment every creator, every dreamer, every builder will face. The moment someone tells you you're wrong. That your work isn't good enough. That your idea won't succeed. Critique. The very word makes most people flinch. Because when your identity is tied to your performance, feedback feels like a direct attack on who you are. That's the reality of the fixed mindset. In that world, criticism isn't information, it's humiliation. It's a spotlight exposing flaws you tried so hard to hide. So you shut down. You get defensive. You push people away. And in doing so, you build a wall that not only blocks pain, but also blocks growth. The fixed mindset treats critique like poison. But the growth mindset? It treats it like medicine. Uncomfortable, yes, but necessary for strength. When a growth mindset person hears feedback, they pause. They breathe. And instead of reacting with emotion, they listen with curiosity. They ask, what can this teach me? Because they understand something profound, that critique is not a weapon, it's a mirror. It reflects where they are and where they still have room to grow. Every great artist, inventor, and thinker in history had to face that mirror. Leonardo da Vinci's early sketches were dismissed as amateur. Einstein's papers were rejected. Oprah was told she didn't belong on television. But instead of shutting down, they adjusted. They refined. They listened not to the noise, but to the truth hidden inside the feedback. Because feedback is data. Even when it stings, even when it's unfair, there's almost always something inside it that can sharpen you. The growth mindset turns every critique into calibration. Each piece of feedback becomes a compass, pointing you closer to mastery. Think about it. The people who grow the fastest are never the ones who know the most. They're the ones most willing to learn. They invite truth, even when it hurts, because they know that comfort is the enemy of evolution. They don't see critique as rejection, they see it as refinement. And that's the real difference between those who stagnate and those who soar. Because when you fear feedback, you protect your ego. But when you embrace feedback, you protect your potential. So the next time someone tells you, you could do better, don't shrink, smile. That sentence, though uncomfortable, is one of the most powerful gifts you'll ever receive. It means someone cared enough to give you the blueprint for your next level. The fixed mindset avoids the mirror and stays blind to its flaws. The growth mindset looks straight into it, not with shame, but with courage, and says, I can use this. Because critique doesn't define you, it refines you. And the more you learn to welcome it, the faster you'll rise beyond the need for approval. Beyond fear, beyond ego, into the unstoppable rhythm of growth itself. The shift, how to stop seeking approval. There comes a point when you realize something profound. You've spent most of your life living for the eyes of others. Every decision, every risk, every dream filtered through an invisible question. What will people think? That question has shaped careers, silenced passions, and delayed greatness. But today, right now, it's time to change that. Because the moment you stop seeking approval is the moment you reclaim your power. And that transformation begins with a single, conscious shift. Listen to your mindset voice. Every person carries two voices in their head, one that keeps them safe, and one that pushes them forward. The first is the fixed mindset voice. It sounds reasonable, even kind. It says things like, maybe you're not ready. This is too risky. You'll embarrass yourself. But what it's really saying is, stay small. Stay safe. Don't grow. And the tragedy is, most people never question it. They assume that voice is their truth. But it's not. It's a habit. A leftover echo from a lifetime of seeking approval. The first step to breaking free is simple: listen. Not to obey, but to recognize. When you hear that voice, pause. Name it. Say to yourself, that's my fixed mindset speaking. Because the moment you name it, it loses power. You separate who you are from what you've been conditioned to believe. And that's when you awaken the second voice. The quiet but unstoppable force of the growth mindset. It whispers, this is hard, but I can learn. I failed, but that means I'm growing. I'm not there, yet. That single word, yet, changes everything. Because I can't is a cage. I can't yet is a door. And with every act of effort, that door opens wider. Praise the process, not the talent. From childhood, many of us were taught to chase labels: smart, gifted, talented. But here's the trap: when you believe your worth comes from talent, you start performing instead of progressing. You become afraid to fail, afraid to look less impressive. So if you want to live with true freedom, start praising differently. When you succeed, don't just say, I did it. Say, I kept going. When others grow, don't praise their ability, praise their persistence. Tell them, I love how hard you worked on that, not, you're so naturally good. This subtle shift rewires your brain. You start valuing effort over ego. And in doing so, you teach yourself something powerful. That the journey, the process, is where your real worth lives. Redefine failure as feedback. Every great innovator has one thing in common: they stopped fearing failure. Because they understood that failure isn't proof you're not enough. It's proof you're trying to become more. When something doesn't work out, don't collapse into judgment. Ask questions. What did this teach me? What can I try differently next time? That's how mastery is built, not in giant leaps, but in thousands of small, curious adjustments. The people who grow the fastest are not those who succeed the most. They're the ones who learn the fastest. Because they turn every mistake into motion. The power of yet. There's a word that every person who's ever achieved greatness has carried like a torch through the dark. That word is yet. It's simple, small, but it holds the power to rewrite your entire self-image. I'm not confident, yet. I don't understand this yet. I haven't reached my goal yet. That word turns finality into potential. It reminds you that life isn't a verdict, it's a process. Every skill, every mindset, every transformation is built through time, patience, and practice. And when you start using it, you instantly step out of the world of approval and into the world of growth. Because when you stop defining yourself by who's watching and start defining yourself by who you're becoming, you unlock something unstoppable: peace. Not the kind that comes from applause or validation, but the quiet, grounded peace of knowing that no matter where you are still in motion, still evolving, still becoming. So the next time your mind whispers, "You're not enough," answer with the truth. Maybe not yet, but I'm on my way. Because the real shift, the one that will make or break your success, isn't about talent, luck, or timing. It's about this simple, radical choice: to stop proving and start improving. To stop seeking approval and start seeking growth. And once you make that choice, nothing and no one can stop you. The freedom beyond approval. There's a moment that comes after every great realization, a quiet pause where the noise fades, and something deeper begins to settle in. Maybe, right now, you're in that moment. Because you've seen the truth of how much energy you've spent trying to be seen, trying to be liked, trying to be enough for everyone else. And maybe, for the first time, you're realizing you don't have to audition anymore. You were never meant to live for approval. You were meant to live for growth. You were meant to explore, to fail, to rise, and to become more than yesterday, not because the world claps for you, but because you choose to evolve. Every great human who ever changed history, from Da Vinci to Mandela, from Marie Curie to Elon Musk, had one thing in common. They stopped chasing approval and started chasing truth. They understood that rejection wasn't failure, it was information. That doubt wasn't a wall, it was a mirror. And that freedom wasn't found in being admired, it was found in being authentic. The moment you stop living to prove something, you start living to build something. You move differently. You think differently. Your confidence no longer depends on applause, it grows from alignment. And that's when you become unstoppable. Because when your worth comes from within, you no longer fear failure, you use it. You no longer fear judgment, you outgrow it. And you no longer fear being unseen, because you finally see yourself. That's the real freedom, the freedom beyond approval. The freedom that comes when your success isn't borrowed from someone else's opinion, but built from your own discipline, your own courage, your own growth. So, here's your challenge. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, do one thing just for you. Not for likes, not for validation, not for applause. Do it because it aligns with your growth. Write the page. Take the risk. Begin the change. And when that old voice returns, the one that says, "You're not ready," you'll know what to say. Maybe not yet, but I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm becoming. Because this is your life. Not a performance. Not a test. Not an audition. Just a masterpiece, still in progress. Stop seeking approval. Start seeking growth.